Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of RPG Radio. My name is Winback, and on today's episode of Armored Core 6, I have got a build with some tank treads that is going to actually move at Mach 7. It's got 2 shotguns, 2 sets of plasma missiles, and all the speed that you can handle in a short little guy like this. If you need the build, there it is right there. All the pieces, all intact, all for your own pausing pleasure. If you want to take this into your own game, feel free. But I am going to talk to you all about the pieces that build this build and how it works in Chapter 1 of the game. Chapter 1, like I said in the previous video, is a big filter for a lot of casual players, and I think that this is going to be a super fun build that doesn't really require a whole lot of additional thought. I know that Armored Core 6 is a very difficult game for a lot of people, but a lot of the builds that I tend to vibe with take a lot of the guesswork out of what it means to play this game. There's not going to be a whole bunch of meter management. There's really not a whole lot that you even have to do in assembling this build, because you're even going to remove boosters using these tank treads. That being said though, let's dive right in. The tank treads are probably the most difficult part about this build. Because they are so fast and because they are tank treads, they require a little bit of playtime to really get the hang of. The tank treads in Armored Core 6 come with the drift mechanic, which is going to help you point your AC in a direction depending on how you quick boost. Basically, the Armored Core is going to hit the ground if you're in the air, or if you're on the ground, you're going to quick boost, and then what you're going to do is flip the stick back in the direction that you want to be pointing, so that they will do a little drift maneuver once they have some traction to swing you back towards the front. I know it sounds super complicated, and honestly, I haven't gotten the complete hang of it myself, but with enough assault boosting baked into your playstyle, there really isn't going to be a whole lot that you have to worry about once you get the feel for the movement in tank treads. All that being said though, the build is super fast because these tank treads are going to be a lightweight design and they come with all the mobility of lightweight AC. It's used while being tank treads. It's like we're at Monaco in F1. The Fortaleza are the best tank treads for moving quickly and absolutely stomping with assault. After the legs though, the next thing I want to talk about is the generator. The Mingtang is a generator that gives you a whole bunch of energy capacity, which you're going to need with all of these energy weapons, and more importantly, the recharge of this generator is the important part. Basically, when you're sitting on the ground, your AC is going to be recharging energy, and because we are a tank tread, we do like the ground. It's not much of a vertical build, and that is one thing, again, that helps really dial back some of the complexity in the playstyle of these tank treads. So, the generator ultimately is going to give you enough energy capacity to wield all of your energy weapons, as well as maintain a decent boost, while the recharge rate is good enough that you will be charging up enough energy often enough to use your quick boost on the ground, combined with your insane surface level mobility. If you really need a better way to dial it down to something more understandable, just consider your generator the amount of quick boosts that you can do while you need them. In a vacuum, this build can get away with about 4 to 5 quick boosts before you hit 0 energy, and even then, you're going to be sitting pretty for a decent amount of time with the recharge rate. After the generator though, we're going to talk about one more thing before we get to the weapons, and that is your FCS, your fire control system. This is the part of your AC that is going to dictate how well your AC decides to aim when it comes to short, medium, and long-range attacks. If you're not aware, range is very important when it comes to Armored Core 6, because if you are beyond a certain operating range for your weapon, your attacks will deflect off of the armor of what you are trying to attack. This is incredibly difficult when it comes to kinetic weaponry like the handguns, rifles, shotguns, all that stuff, but just remember there is a peak efficient range for everything that you're using. This AC build in particular is going to operate in a more middle range because the shotguns still want to be close, but those missiles can operate from further away than you'd think. And ultimately, that is the big draw to the PO5. It's easy, it's quick, you get it early, and it operates at the peak efficient range, which is medium for this build. So don't overthink it. Go with the one that the description says is decent, and those numbers are all saying blue for you. So before we talk about all the weapons kitted out on this build, let's talk about the first boss in Chapter 1, apart from the tutorial boss that is going to be anything you need to pay attention to. The Juggernaut in this case ultimately is still at least 50% easy. When it comes to the built-in gimmick for this boss, he's going to pay a whole lot of attention to Rusty at the outset, so you should be able to use your very superior tank treads to get around behind him and absolutely unload from close range. I spent the entire fight using just the 2 shotguns from close range and vertical missiles to hit him from further away because he is undefended on the top as well, so you can build a stagger up pretty easily. I didn't have to charge the shotguns as well. Mostly we're just unloading from short range to make sure we're getting maximum damage, but you can charge them up if you wanted to get more damage. It just takes a little bit longer, and I feel like the DPS might be dropping. That being said though, since we're talking about the damage, we have the 6.6 LS laser shotgun, the mainstay weaponry of this build, and one of the coolest looking weapons in the entire game. One of the really cool things about this shotgun is that, like I mentioned earlier, it does come with a charge mechanic. So if you are the type of player who can consistently sit inside that medium range, you can actually use these shotguns to even greater effect by holding down the attack buttons and charging up bigger shots. When the shots are charged up, they concentrate into a single beam, which travels further and has an AoE to it. It is actually really cool, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when it comes to things like bosses, because you do want to get really close up and unload anytime that they are staggered. Now, I'm sorry, this part of the video is silly. It's slow-mo because the Juggernaut died to those vertical missiles raining down on top of him while he was backed into a corner, so I couldn't shoot him in the face and end it. I tried to even kill him with the assault boost, but wouldn't you know it, his big frontal plating is just too spooky. But there you have it. The Juggernaut is actually incredibly easy to deal with because of your mobility. It's very, very easy to get around behind him. You just have to do a couple little hops here and there to get over those mines that he shoots out the back to try and deter you from getting into all of his soft, squishy bits. Now, I mentioned missiles quite a few times when it comes to this build, and the plasma missile launcher, the 703 PM, is your standard plasma missile launcher. This is basically the base straight shooting plasma missile that you should be able to buy relatively quick in the game, and there is a good reason for that. This is actually going to afford you the opportunity to get a very lightweight plasma missile launcher that doesn't compromise the mobility of your build and the boost speed that you get, while also giving you a secondary angle with missiles to attack from. So basically you'll have a straight firing plasma missile along with a vertical firing plasma missile to help choke out the dodge potential of any AC on the other side or any big boss that's deciding it is their entire life's purpose to quick dodge literally every bullet that you are throwing at them. Now, we do need to talk about the final weapon on this build, which is the vertical mounted plasma missile launcher, but the astute of you in the audience may have noticed that we are currently not rocking that missile launcher on this mission. There is a reason for that, and I do want to talk about it, but suffice it to say, right now, the plasma missile launcher that we are supposed to have equipped is not equipped, and we are instead testing out the Javelin Beta missile launcher, which is in and of itself a very cool missile design, but let's get focused. The 70 VPM plasma missile launcher is going to be very, very similar to your previous plasma missile launcher, except for the fact that it is going to go vertical. The vertical missile launch is going to rain down upon enemies just like you didn't see with that Juggernaut fight, and it does a pretty solid amount of stagger while offering very few opportunities for the enemy to dodge it. Like I mentioned just a little bit ago, the fact that you have two different trajectories with your missiles on this build makes it much more difficult for enemies to dodge all of them, because they have to dodge what's coming straight at them and what is raining down from above. With that, you're going to see this fight with Sulla go a lot quicker than normal, because this is a single attempt attack, and it is incredibly promising that this AC just gets absolutely wrecked when he's caused me so much annoying pain with other melee-focused builds. If you're not familiar with Sulla, he's basically a huge pain that comes in right before the end boss of Chapter 1, and he does serve to make you just extra frustrated before you go into the really big frustration, which is Balteus. That being said, if you are able to knock Sulla out quick, he is a very big shot in the arm of motivation going into Balteus. Sulla, however, sports a, I think it's some sort of plasma energy weapon. It's basically a bubble gun, and it can stack up damage and stagger on you very quickly. He has got the javelin missile launcher just like we do, and on top of all that, he has got a handheld grenade launcher that will absolutely wreck your shop if you let it hit you after the notification fires off. Sulla is a very big proponent of the kick as well, so if you stand still for too long, or if you get hit and staggered with his grenade launcher, he will fly in for an AC kick to your dome piece, knocking you even further on butt. The good news, however, is that he is a medium weight AC, so once you can eat through his repair kits, his health bar is not overly impressive. So as long as you can nail him down, keep those shotguns pressed directly into his face, he will die relatively quick. All of the repair kits in the entire world could not save him from our two big blue bad boys. Speaking of big bad boys though, this is Balteus. This actually took a lot fewer attempts than my standard heavy cannon handgun build, which was really, honestly, pretty impressive. Maybe I was just feeling it. Maybe I was jazzed up from that quick Sulla kill. Maybe it was just the Armored Core gods shining down upon me. But this went a lot smoother than I thought it was going to. Because we have the Javelin beta equipped rather than our vertical plasma missiles, we are going to be actually burning up quicker stagger when it comes to Balteus. The reason that I have the Javelin on is because those explosions that trail behind the initial missile actually build more stagger up than our vertical plasma missiles do. With that caveat though, I don't necessarily think that the Javelin beta is a requirement to kill Balteus. I think that it is perfectly possible with those vertical plasma missiles to do exactly what we did in this fight. Easy wins against the boss with, knowing what you're doing, and two trajectories of plasma missile coming at him. Basically, you want to follow him around from the mid-range, keep the shield going down, keep his stagger dropping so that you can capitalize big time in his face with your shotguns from up close. Getting him knocked down isn't ultimately the hard part of this fight. Rather, what you're going to want to pay attention to is using the best of your basic mobility and quick boosts to dodge as many missiles and as much damage from him as possible. Getting in there and dealing damage from close range is very easy, but staying alive and making sure that you avoid everything that Balteus can throw at you is a little bit more difficult. Because this build isn't built to be huge and tanky, pardon the pun, it is going to require that you use a little bit more focus. Ultimately, dodging all of Balteus's options is difficult, but once you learn them, once you get a hang of your windows, things become a little bit easier. Ultimately, when he fires off his huge salvos of missiles, you can assault boost directly into him to dodge a lot of the front end damage of those missiles and unload a whole bunch of damage of your own with your shotguns. Those 66Ls do the same amount of damage that a melee weapon would do, they just happen to do it a little bit slower because they don't do it all in one instance. So basically, you'll get up in his face, and when he is staggered, you can get probably 4 to 5 shots off on him before he'll go poofing away, running for the hills like it is the only thing he knows how to do. Hiding outside the arena is a Balteus special, so sometimes melee weapons can have a little bit of a bad time. The good news is, I still didn't need to charge any of the guns when it came to this fight. It was just left trigger, right trigger. Pull those shotguns as fast and as often as we can in the right ranges to rack up his stagger and rack down his health bar. That lucky mother... It's fine, because your other really cool mechanic when it comes to tank treads is that your assault boost actually does more damage the more weight that you have. When it comes to kicking bad guys with your armored core, your tank legs offer a lot of nuanced damage that doesn't come in with other lighter weight builds. I know that this is technically a lightweight tank tread build, but the weight is still significant enough that we get some pretty decent damage on the armored kick when it comes to assault boosting in and showing Balteus our Balteus. That was the last one, I promise. So, if you still need it, obviously all of the parts for this build are earlier on in the video, and the build in and of itself is very, very easy to play. The big problems that you're going to run into if you are deciding on picking this build up is moving from something like a bipedal or a quadruped, anything with legs, into a tank-driven AC, because the movement on these bad boys is really weird compared to playing with regular old legs. So, definitely start your practicing journey with the tank legs early on. And that is another caveat to this build. The Fortaleza legs are not unlockable until you have completed the mission Ocean Crossing in the game. That in and of itself is a little bit of a tragedy because that is one of the most difficult bosses in the entire game, and it is a huge cheesy gimmick, but I'll start producing some videos for that guy in the future. Once you get that done though, I would highly recommend the Fortaleza legs and this build on a second playthrough or even a third playthrough if you're that far into it. Remember, Armored Core does have a whole lot to do after you beat the game in playing the game in New Game Plus and New Game Plus Plus. There's stuff you want to do, so I recommend this build for a second playthrough, and if you're really into it, pick up that first set of tank legs and start going that way. You're going to be a lot less mobile, but things are still going to work generally the same, and the trade-off is that your assault kick will do a lot more damage because you'll be much heftier as a bigger tanky boy. That's it for me though, everybody. I will see you all next time. Peace out.